Finally, after an entire series of poor performances, the England Test team managed to not lose all their wickets. It wasn't a perfect performance, but it was the best so far in a 2022 Ashes series down under. In this episode, we'll be looking at the key performances in the fourth Test, potential injury concerns, and squad lineups for the fifth Test. So, I think in terms of key performances, I think we go with batsman-wise. For me, it's probably England's best batsman was Johnny Bairstow, and Australia's was Usman Khawaja. What do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Both the batsmen have done really well. Usman Khawaja obviously scored 100 in both innings, and I think it's just they've been added to the 11, and they've just suddenly performed, which is really promising for both teams. So yeah, I think they've both been the best batsmen for their teams.
Yeah, Johnny Bairstow with his century in the first innings and did score 41 in the second. Like I'm so surprised why England have not picked him for the first three tests. Like for me, he would be one of he's not been the best in red ball cricket over the last couple of years, but he would still be one of the first people I'd put on the team sheet. Like he generally scores in the 30s so consistently, and I'm a big fan of him. You know, his like technique, his the way he can like switch gears so quickly. And the opposite of Johnny Bairstow for Australia is 100% Usman Khawaja, who comes in a similar position, you know, who can score. Like what Usman Khawaja took time to get his 50, then straight after he got his 50, just completely upped the tempo, and he put a lot of pressure back on England. And I think that's crazy because he's also been out of the Test team for 2 years, I think now, since the Ashes in England in 2019. So he's been out for a couple of years, but he's also done really well, centuries in both innings. So two really good batsmen. Do you think both of them have a big future in Test cricket? Obviously, Johnny Bairstow is like 34, I think. Not sure. I think Usman Khawaja is also 35 as well. But how long do you think they'll probably stay in the England team for?
Yeah, I think they've got a good few years ahead of them. I mean, that's all you want from a player, that you get the opportunity and then you deliver. You don't want a player to come in and then take loads of time, especially in a big series like the Ashes. And I think Khawaja and Bairstow, they've both done that. They've come in and scored big runs. They've done what their teams want them to do. So I think they've got a good few years ahead of them. I think they've got a promising back end of their career coming up.
Yeah, it seems like they're sort of, obviously this is one innings and we can't judge it on one innings, but especially Johnny Bairstow in terms of England's situation where we haven't been able to score any runs, like we scored so less runs. Obviously Australia have already been scoring quite a few runs, you know, I think a couple of innings in 400s, 300s, but for England, Johnny Bairstow is just a complete, you know, it's pretty much saved us. Without his 110 runs in the first innings, we would have made like 180, which was nothing. So I think especially with Joe Root, obviously he's been in really good form. You could sort of see the last few innings have been not as good. He's been fishing outside of off stump quite often, getting nicked from keep getting out off the bowling of Boland. So he's not been of good form. Ben Stokes has played himself back into form. How do you think in terms of Stokes? There was a few questions during third Test. You know, should we keep picking Stokes? You know, Stokes is not back in form. But I think he sort of answered those questions with 50s in both innings. Do you think England should follow this model and keep faith with their players, even if they're not scoring many runs?
Well, I think someone like Ben Stokes, we all know how he played in 2019 in the World Cup, in the Ashes. He just played amazingly that year. And someone who just has that amazing year, they might have a couple of bad performances, but I don't think that you can really drop them. I think you really need to just stick with them and they will deliver, as has Ben Stokes in this Test.
Would you keep that same model with Haseeb Hameed, who's averaging less than 10 this series?
Now, with Hameed, it's a bit of a difficult decision because he's been, hasn't had the best of series there, and it's really the Ashes. It's probably the biggest Test series you'll get. So perhaps, I mean, Hameed has come a bit new in the India series recently, last year, and he was playing well there. Perhaps maybe just give him maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month, just back in county cricket. Maybe that's an option. I'm not saying you have to do that, but maybe that's an option. Just get his confidence back up, so then when he comes back on the international stage, he can deliver.
Yeah, in terms of the Haseeb Hameed is sort of for me, I view him as like a Dom Sibley, but with more scoring, but not a lot more, because like with Haseeb Hameed, he can't really put pressure back on the bowlers. He has good shots and good solid technique, but then obviously this series he's been exposed way too much. Even defending balls close to his body, he's just nicking them. He's not even fishing outside off stump. It's just even this like standard defense is not being able to do it. Like for me, it's a bit worrying if you played like 7 innings and you're averaging under 10. Like it's okay if it's 2 or 3 innings, but then when it gets 7 innings, which means he's played throughout this entire series and he's still not scored anything significant. I think in terms of Zach Crawley was another standout performer for England in the second innings. He was probably, without Zach Crawley, we would have never drawn this fourth test. Like obviously we had some good lower order defending, but Zach Crawley, 77 of 100 balls, that run rate is just impressive. What do you feel about Zach Crawley?
Yeah, I think it's the first time this series we've seen that one of England's openers have actually managed to score, put some pressure back on Australia. And Zachary's done that here with his impressive strike rate. I was watching him and he just looked in flow, just looked so comfortable at the crease. And we also had Johnny Bairstow, obviously, as we talked about earlier. We've had some good middle order performances. I think Zach Crawley, he's got lots of time in Test cricket. I'm sure he will have a great career. And he's obviously been showing that. Someone who scored double hundred, he scored double hundred against Pakistan a couple of years ago now. That was incredible. I think someone like that, he's got a big future in Test cricket.
Yeah, I agree. I just feel like his batting, his tempo, and his pull shot especially. Oh my God, it's a perfect pull shot, and he's not just either offside base player or leg side base player. He can play everywhere. He's sort of like Joe Root with that touch. He's got really good touch of the ball, and his timing is just perfect. If he can just be more consistent and play himself back into confidence, because everyone knows how talented he is. It's not that's not the issue. And his defense is generally okay. Like if you could score 77 off 100 balls and put pressure, if he'd lasted a bit longer, obviously 100 balls in a Test match isn't a load, but it was a good piece of bowling to get him out. So overall, England, if Johnny Bairstow is playing form, Zach Crawley has played himself back into confidence. For England, it's mainly been a confidence issue, I think. Back from getting low scores, just getting steamrolled for 68 is not going to help your confidence. I think once, when there's no pressure of, winning the series or keeping the series alive, when the series is lost, you can play with a little bit more freedom. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. You win the series is lost, it's not a great thing, obviously. But yeah, you can just play with a bit more freedom. You don't have any confidence issues. You don't need to worry about losing the series anymore. And England have definitely showed that with their batting. They've improved. They still have a bit more to do, but definitely with their batting in the fourth test, it's been much better. They've just looked much more comfortable at the crease, and they just need to put that into when they're in a pressure situation in a series. If they can put this performance into a pressure situation, then I think they'll be a good, much better team. They'll be able to get their confidence back, and I'm sure they'll be better.
Yeah. So I think let's go on to the bowlers now. There's been some standout bowling performances on both sides. I think for an England perspective, Stuart Broad, and from an Australia perspective, Boland. He has been absolutely crazy. He's just started Test cricket. I hadn't heard of him. I hadn't seen him. I've watched a few matches of Sheffield Shield, not really seeing him very much. I don't think, especially from an England perspective, we hadn't really heard of him. That he might have had the element of surprise as well. But from his 6 for 7 in the third test to his figures in the fourth test, he's been taking so many wickets. He's managed to consistently get Joe Root out, who you could arguably say is one of the top 4 best batsmen in the world at the current moment. And he's been just a complete threat always. He's just, all the batsmen are not exactly playing well against him. But everyone, we can play Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins, but we can't play Boland. How do you feel his bowling's been?
Yeah, it's been incredible, actually. Yeah, that 6 for 7 you were talking about, I just had to continue watching that. It was absolutely incredible. And it was in really quick time as well. I think 5 or 6 overs or something. And he just come in, and again, as you said, no one had heard of him. And that's the real threat that a lot of teams around the world do. You have a new player, the coaches think, yes, this is a good player, let's put him in. And then the other team gets a bit confused. What is this player doing? And then you realise that as Scott Boland has done this this match and the previous one. He was doing incredibly well. And I think this fourth test has just been really, we've had the best performances, I think, have really been from the players that have come in to their respective teams. And really, I just think that's what you want from your players. As I've said before, you come in, you get the opportunity and you deliver. And Scott Boland has done that incredibly.
Yeah, and I think with Scott Boland, it's not really like he doesn't exactly swing like ball in swing Yorkers like Mitchell Stark or balls like jagging like crazy like Pat Cummins does. He's just so consistent and with a bit of seam movement. Do you think that if Josh Hazlewood, once he gets back, and obviously he's out injured at the moment, once he's returns to fitness, do you think Scott Boland will remain in the team, or do you think Josh Hazlewood will take his place?
Well, I think that'll be a bit of a you could say a bit of fight for that place, because I don't think you can really have both of them. Really, you could depend on the conditions. If it's really a lot about pace, then you could get Mitch Stark in. But I think Scott Boland, he will definitely stay for the next few games, even for maybe the next series that Australia have. And Josh Hazlewood, well, I think he's really got to fight for his place when he gets the opportunity. I said a lot today. When you get the opportunity, you've got to deliver. And whenever Josh Hazlewood gets the opportunity again, if he delivers, it will be a real debate in the Australian camp. Do you have Scott Boland or Josh Hazlewood? And I think that's a good thing to have that sort of, you have two options rather than none. I think that's much better.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be, if Scott Boland keeps bowling like this, Josh Hazlewood's going to find it pretty tough to get his place back. But yeah, in terms of England's bowling, described as a caged tiger by stand-in coach Graham Thorpe, Stuart Broad has come into the side after having a patchy series, not being kept out of the team when arguably he should have been playing on good pitches that would have assisted his bowling. Stuart Broad has came back and had a fifer in the first innings. So Stuart Broad, how did you feel his bowling was?
Yeah, he's been very consistent, like Scott Boland, and we all know he's a world-class bowler. He's been for many years now, as we know with Anderson as well. These two bowlers, people have talked about it a lot. England are really lucky to have Broad and Anderson in the same era of cricket. And Stuart Broad in that innings, that was great. 5 for 100 or something in his 30 overs, and 5 wickets. You don't always see fifers. I know we often see them, and then we're like, yeah, it's not that. It's pretty common, but it's not that common, and especially in conditions like Australia. Australia have done amazingly this series. So Stuart Broad coming in, having a shaky series, as you said, coming in, delivering straight away, getting fifer. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think you can see from the moment, the first over that he bowled, the intensity coming around the wicket, constantly targeting the left-hander's edge. I think he did get David Warner out again. It's just been an absolute menace. And everyone, even the Australia team, players like David Warner, Steve Smith, have remarked on how surprised they were that Stuart Broad didn't play in the first test, which was the Brisbane pitch. That was really green. Because we obviously know Stuart Broad can help down lower order as well. He can bat. He can hit at least 10, 15, 20 runs. With Stuart Broad, you're not losing out. You're not losing out by keeping him in the team. There is no reason for you to omit him unless you think, okay, the conditions are ready. You want like an express pace ball like Mark Wood, and you might want to take off Stuart Broad. But with like people like Jofra Archer, Ollie Stone sideline, you've not got a load of people, waiting in the wing. You've got Chris Wokes, who's an option, but Chris Wokes generally, I wouldn't put him in. I would only put him in like swinging or day-night conditions. I was not going to just put him in like a hard Australian pitch because he won't do anything. So Stuart Broad is stand-up performance. Do you think he's going to play for the 5th test, which is a day-night test?
Yeah, I would definitely put him in because he's done really well in that innings, and I would definitely put him in. When you have a bowler in form, even if you if you have another bowler waiting in the wings who could be better for those conditions, I still think I would favour Stuart Broad for this next game rather than someone like Chris Wokes, because he's just in form at this point. He's bowling well, he's got the consistency, and that's what really, really want from your bowlers. Yeah.
So in terms of bowling attack, I think the role of spinners in this test is a bit murky in a way. It's not really defined. Nathan Lyon bowled well as usual. He's never bowled bad. he didn't. I don't think he picked. He didn't pick up as many wickets as he liked, but he was a constant threat. Jack Leach, on the other hand, did take wickets, but honestly, what do you feel about Jack Leach? Because I'm not a fan of him.
Well, Jack Leach has been interesting because he didn't have a great first test, and then he has improved. He's had sort of an up and down series, I would say. He did take 4 wickets in the second innings in fourth test, and he has done well with the bat as well. Actually, he's been getting a few runs and just stopping that flow so that they can. He almost, you could say, saved the game for England in that second innings, batting low and getting those valuable runs and staying in there. So his bowling really, it's like, obviously spin's been interesting this series, as he said, and Leach has got 4 wickets, and he's just had an up and down series. He's a really interesting one to talk about.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. A spinner for me in Australia should really be obviously aiming to take wickets, but playing a holding role, keeping the run rate really low. Sort of what Jimmy Anderson, regardless of he obviously opens the bowling, but his run rate, even if everyone else is on the teams his economy, even if everyone else, all the other bowlers are like 3, 4, 5 runs, Jimmy Anderson's always going to be 2 runs, sub 2 runs. That's something he's generally known for. He's such a low economy, but I was surprised because I feel like if Jack Leach is bowling loads and loads of overs, his economy needs to be a lot lower. Like, he's laying in way too many runs. England, Joe Root always sets a defensive field for him, spreads so many people out deep. And there's so many singles, easy singles for the Australian batsmen to score, and that's really impacting the game because as a spinner, you should be. Especially as an off spinner in Australian pitches, you should be playing a holding role, giving rest to the seamers, and just going in, bowling your overs, bowling them quickly, just keep the run rate to a minimum, putting pressure. So it allows the seamer on the other end just to, capitalize on the pressure. Jack Leach hasn't really been doing that. He's pretty been expensive, 3.5, 4 runs and over. So yeah, but then in terms of alternatives to Jack Leach, I think the clear one's Dom Bess. Would you favour Dom Bess over Jack Leach, or would you keep Jack Leach?
Well, you're definitely right when you're saying Jack Leach has been a bit expensive, and Root has set quite a defensive field to him. And I guess it's a difficult one because Leach, he was really expensive in that first test, wasn't he? And I guess the point of Test cricket is, yes, you always say you want those 10 wickets, but you can't be leaking in runs if you're going at 3.5, 4 runs and over. But that's quite a lot of runs, and to chase down or to get a lead is difficult. So you have to still be thinking about the runs, and I think Dom Bess could be an option. At this point, Leach, I think I might stick with him because he's getting you the wickets, and I guess you could work things out by maybe getting a ratio of how many runs per wicket. Because if your how many runs per wicket is low, then I guess yes, you could keep him. And he got 4 wickets for, yes, he's expensive, but he's got he's been bowling well, and I just think Dom Bess, he could be an option, but I'm not sure in these conditions he's going to be the perfect option. I think Leach, I would stick with him.
Yeah. I guess it depends on what you value more. Are you willing to be a bit more expensive and require the seamers to be much more have less economy to balance it all out, but then Jack Leach take wickets, or are you want Jack Leach or any spinner to just have a really meager economy and then allow the seamers to take the wickets? But I think it's regardless of that. I think spinner is just to have a spinner in the team, just to go out with all 5 paces, unless there's so much clear evidence that there's going to be a lot of movement. I would always just be safe and have some sort of spinner in the team. Australia are very lucky; they've got part timers like Marnus Labuschagne, Steve Smith, who took a wicket, and in the second innings of England's second innings, where they just managed to scrape through a win. Sorry, not a win, a draw. But Australia have got a lot of spinners. England, in terms of part timers, we have Dawid Malan, but I wouldn't really count his spinners part time. It's pretty expensive. Joe Root isn't bad. I think Joe Root is a decent part-time spinner. But yeah, England don't have as much, spin options as such. Travis Head can also both spin for Australia. So we haven't got as many options. So it's important for us to have a spinner. So in terms of looking forward to the 5th test, the final test of the series, England have 3 key middle order batsmen injured. Josh Butler, Ben Stokes, and Johnny Bairstow are injured. Josh Butler's been sent home to recover. Ben Stokes and Johnny Bairstow still in the squad and will be travelling to Hobart for the fifth test, but they're looking unlikely to participate. Obviously, Ben Stokes with his side strain, was barely able to play some shots like the cut shot. Don't want to make it any worse and potentially, make him out for a few weeks, maybe a month. That would not be good with more cricket coming up in all three formats soon. And Johnny Bairstow, I think, was a finger or thumb issue. How big do you think they're if all three are missing, or even if two of them are missing? How big do you think the impact's going to be on the England performances?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a huge impact, and it does bring some changes, some new opportunities, new faces in the lineup. But these three are big players. They've been playing well. Butler's been a player for many years now. All three formats been playing very well, and just these three players. Just these three players, they are just the sorts of players that you want in your lineup. And for England to miss out that's a big upset for them. You don't. It brings for some changes. You could have someone like Dan Lawrence or Ollie Purple, Sam Billings coming in, but I don't think you can really get a great replacement for these three players, especially Stokes and Bairstow. They've both been playing amazing cricket recently, and Stokes, we just know him from a long time now. So these three, I think, going to be a big miss for England.
Yeah, I agree with them. There's no like for like replacement for them. Like, for example, in Australia's team, if Usman Khawaja suddenly became injured or something, you have Travis Head, pretty much like for like replacements, both attacking the players play a similar position. But for me, I don't know. I have a question on Josh Butler in terms of his performances. He's averaged under 20 in his last like 8 tests or something along the lines of that. He hasn't scored a 50 since January 2021. So it's just obviously he's coming in number 7, but this is Test cricket and number 7s do get a chance at bat. With England's order, he probably comes into about 30th, 40th over. He did. England's bad performances mean that Josh Butler always gets a chance to play, and he gets loads of overs to play. There's no question about it. But he hasn't been scoring runs. Like, do you think? Obviously, we know Josh Butler's reputation in T20 cricket, ODI as well. He's a finisher. He's really good. But in Test cricket, do you think his game is built for Test cricket, or do you think he should focus more on white ball?
Well, I think Butler can definitely play Test cricket, and we've seen he has scored, I think, 1 or 2 centuries. And I know, as you said, he's had last 50 he scored was last year in January, but it could be that Butler just gets maybe a little bit of time off Test cricket. I think he's had that before as well, but just a little bit more time off. Just focusing. Perhaps an option is just to focus on your T20 cricket and your ODI cricket, because at the end of the day, you want the best out of your players. If Butler is just not made for Test cricket, then maybe he should just go back to T20 ODI cricket. I mean, you've got Bairstow to keep, or Ben Stokes, really. You can, perhaps you might want Butler in a bit more, but maybe the option is just give him a bit of time off and see how it goes from there.
True. Yeah, I agree. So our last sort of segment of this episode is just looking at possible lineups for the 5th test. The final test, unfortunately it's not a deciding test, as England have already lost the Ashes. But yeah, there's still a lot to play for. Good chance for Australia to try out some new players, like fringe players. Same with England as well. They've been tweaking with their lineup as well. They have kept faith to Haseeb Hameed throughout the entire series, and he has not repaid them. But they gave opportunity to Zach Crawley. Rory Burns was taken off after some low scores. We both of us have our own picks for the squads. Let me start with my England one, and then Zaid, you say your England one, and then I'll do my Australia one. Then you do your Australia one. For me, I would go openers Zach Crawley and Rory Burns. I'd bring Rory Burns back in his side for Haseeb Hameed. I'm a personal fan of Rory Burns. I know he didn't play very well, but he's still he's a good batsman. He's better than Haseeb Hameed. And then I do David Malan, Joe Root, 3 and 4. So this is just assuming Butler, Stokes, and Bairstow won't play. I would put my 3 replacements would be Ollie Pope, Dan Lawrence, and Sam Billings in that order, 5, 6, 7. Because this is a fifth test, and it's a day-night test. I would number 8 would be Chris Wokes, number 9 Mark Wood, 10 Stuart Broad, and 11 Jimmy Anderson. I would omit a spinner. I don't see the point in putting a spinner in for the fifth test. I think give Jack Leach a rest. I want to try out Chris Wokes, just make sure, because I think he deserves more of a chance. What's your England lineup for the fifth test?
Yeah, so since we've lost we're assuming that Butler, Stokes, and Bairstow aren't going to play. I just feel you kind of have to bring back Roy Burns and keep Hamid. Yes, they haven't gone really well, but I think you can get they just need, like, you don't really have much of an option for me. You brought in Sam Billings, and yeah, it's a good choice, but I don't feel Sam Billings is the best option, especially for this day-night test. So I've gone with Rory Burns and Hasib Hamid to open. I've put Zach Crawley at 3. He's been going pretty well in the last test. Then I put Joe Brew at 4, and then Dawid Malan at 5. It might seem a bit odd for Dawid Malan at 5, and I don't know about him. As for himself, he might feel a bit odd in that position, but I just think if he's there, he knows that there's plenty of batsmen ahead of him, and there's a couple of batsmen behind him. I put Ollie Pope and Dan Lawrence after him at 6 and 7. So I just think that's a more solid batting lineup for England. But if Roy Burns and Hasib Hamid can get a good score going, maybe just get, even if it's just a 30 or 40 run partnership, it gives a decent platform for the next few batsmen coming in, Crawley, Root, Malan, who we all know they've been playing well recently. Root has had a bit of a struggle in the last few innings, but we all know he's a world-class player. So then I've got Pope Lawrence, and then I put Jack Leach. I know you said in day-night test, we don't really see a point of having a spinner. I put him because in the recent test, he did bowl decently, and he did pick up 4 wickets, which is good. And also that he gives you that a bit of batting to go. And he obviously, we saw him, he took up nearly 6 overs, which is great. And yeah, you put in Chris Wokes. It's a good option, but I just feel Chris Wokes hasn't really played much this series. So I think just stick with players that they've already used, especially this last test. Yes, it's not a huge amount at stake, but it's a great opportunity for England to show who they are. And then after that, I've put Mark Wood. He's been playing well. Great pace, making those batsmen jump. It's great. And then we got Broad and Anderson, who, they're world-class bowlers. Not much to say about them.
Yeah, okay. I think let's just quickly talk about key points of difference. So obviously you have kept Hamid and you have moved Dawid Malan to 5. For me, I guess I get the whole point that it's it gives a bit of more assurance in the middle order. But Dawid Malan, his style of batting, he's the type of, the reason why he's at 3, and even you could even put him as an opener, is because he can easily wipe the shine off the new ball. He'll provide that platform. If he's at number 5, a number 5 batsman is expected to bat with a good amount of tempo, because obviously there might be it could be rain washout sessions and stuff like that, and they want to put pressure back on the bowlers. Dawid Malan isn't exactly, obviously he's a T20 batsman, but in test conditions, I don't think he can easily shift gears. So I get the reason why you would do that, but also if you don't put Sam Billings in, you haven't actually got Ollie Pope can keep. Obviously he can properly keep, but he isn't the best keeper. That's why he doesn't keep for Surrey. So I think Sam Billings is a keeper, and he's a keeper batsman, and his keeping's pretty good. So I would just keep him for his keeping, and then if he bats at 7, we can expect him to put up a fight as well. So so what do you think? Like, what would you say is the main what would you say the main reason is for you keeping Hasib Hamid in? Like that's a bit of a questionable decision in my opinion.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and I get your point about Dawid Malan at 5. Now I'm not sure. Then Joe Root, you can't really move him anywhere. So with my lineup, I guess it really raises the question with Zach Crawley and Dawid Malan, where do they bat? Well, it could be Crawley. Could he go at 5? I'm not sure. He has been batting. You don't really want to shift him from where he is already. And Dawid Malan at 5. Yeah, I get what you mean. yeah, he's a T20 batsman. He takes a shine off the ball, and he's a great batsman. I think at some point, maybe not this next test, but at some point, you've just got to try out different options. You've got to maybe have a man at opening or getting that five or anything, but you've got to try different batting lineups, I feel, and perhaps maybe it's a bit early to move Milan down at five or put him opening or anything. But yeah, I get what you mean. It's maybe a bit early, but I think some point in the future, perhaps you've just got to get a change in that batting line. Just get a batsman. Just let the batsmen see for themselves. Are they comfortable in this position? If not, then yes, they can go back to their original position. If they are, then maybe that can be an option for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is a good opportunity to test around. Yeah. Okay. Let's just go on to our Australia squads. My squad is Marcus Harris, David Warner opening, Marnus Labuschagne, number one Test batsman in the world, Steve Smith, then Usman Khawaja. Obviously, you can't drop him with his form. Cameron Green, he scored I think 70 odd and pretty quick run rate. I would actually put Josh Inglis. Who's a keeper and a very good batsman. I think he's playing Big Bash at the moment, but I would swap him off Alex Carey, and the main reason because this is fifth test and there's not really much to play for except for pride. So I just give him an opportunity, see how he does. Then Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Nathan Lyon, and Scott Boland. This is on the basis that Josh Hazlewood is still injured, which I think he is going to be still injured. What's your Australia squad for the fifth test?
Yeah, I've actually got in an unchanged squad from the fourth test. So that's David Warner, Marcus Harris, Marnus Labuschagne, Steve Smith, Usman Khawaja, Cameron Green, and Alex Carey instead of Josh Inglis. Then I've got Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Nathan Lyon, and Scott Boland. Now with Alex Carey, yes, I don't think he's been in his best of touch recently, but I don't really feel Josh Inglis. I've never really seen him play Test cricket before. So he has played well in the 100, I think, recently for the London Spirit. So Josh Inglis could be an option, but I think I would stick with Alex Carey because this squad seems to be doing great, especially at the top. As you said, Marnus Labuschagne, number one Test batsman in the world. You can't obviously drop Khawaja. He's been magnificent in that fourth test. Cameron Green, he's been playing well, and I would stick with Alex Carey. I think just yes, as you said, all it really is the playing with pride. But I would think that Australia want to win it by a big margin. So at the moment it's 3-0. We've had a draw in the fourth test, and I think Australia want to give it everything they've got. Maybe try Josh Inglis in a later series. Something not as big as the Ashes. I think maybe just in later series. But I would stick with just Alex Carey for that position.
Yeah, I guess Alex Carey doesn't. Yeah, if you play him this next test, just give him a bit more confidence. Make sure that he knows he's in the team. As a keeper, it's unlikely he's going to be dropped because there aren't many other keeping options for Australia except for Josh Inglis. But so that's the only point of difference in both our squads. Overall, I think it was a good performance from England. Obviously, not as what we expected. We can't give them so much credit because they held up for a draw, but they didn't exactly win the test. But hopefully, they can put up a similar performance or even better in the day-night test. I wonder what the squad's going to be like. I have a feeling that I think one of the three, Josh Buttler, Ben Stokes, and Johnny Bairstow is going to play, and so that means that we won't have to make so many changes to the squad. But hopefully England can win the fifth test and save us a bit of pride for all the fans that waking up at midnight or 4 a.m. and watching the Ashes. Please subscribe or follow if you've enjoyed this episode and share with anyone who likes cricket. Thank you, Zaid, for joining me in this episode. And hopefully we can win the fifth test. England can win the fifth test and save us a bit of pride.